there's so much opportunity here for society. Yes, there are risks and we need to mitigate and regulate those risks. There's no doubt about it. That shouldn't mean that we don't grasp the opportunity by both horns and really go for it.
Today, we're joined by Naoise Ó Cearúil, a member of Ireland's Parliament as the TD for Kildare North and Fianna Fáil's spokesperson on artificial intelligence and Gaeltacht Affairs. As Ireland establishes its new National AI Office and implements the EU AI Act, Naoise is part of the political conversation shaping how government oversees AI. We'll explore what this means for innovation, regulation, and Ireland's role in Europe's AI future. Naoise, welcome to the pod.
Thanks very much, Ian. Great to be with you.
Let's start by you walking us through your background, your current position in the Ireland government, as well as your remit within your political party.
Yeah, so I suppose I got elected to Kildare County Council, the local authority in my own county, when I was 24. So I was running from the age of 23, so just after university. And so that was in 2014. Was re-elected in 2019 and re-elected again in June 2024. And then I was selected by my party to contest the general election in November 2024 and was fortunate enough to be elected in my first go at the Dála elections.
Very impressive. And tell me, why did you decide to stand for government? What motivated you to enter public service?
Yeah, so if I go back to secondary school or high school, I was involved in debating. I always enjoyed debating in both Irish and in English, and had just a real sense of kind of participation in the local community, in the Irish language activism. My parents founded a local Gaeilge school, which is an Irish language school in my own hometown of Maynooth, and there was a need for an all-Irish secondary school. So I did my junior cert, so GCSE equivalent through Irish, and then I had to do my Leaving Cert, the A-level equivalent through English, because there wasn't an available school at the time. So that then transpired into university. I studied law and business in Maynooth. I was in the first graduate class there and was first president of the Law Society, also president of the Irish Language Society. Just really got a feel for university life and extracurricular activities. And then in my final year, I was elected to the Students' Union as vice president. So that kind of kicked off the political bug, as it were. Shortly after I finished up in the Students' Union, my plan was to sit the New York bar and to move to New York to become a lawyer there. As the first graduate class in Maynooth, we were told that the degree was accepted. And the degree technically was accepted, but the problem was they wanted 900 undergraduate hours of law, and I had 650 law and 250 business. So it didn't compute, so I wasn't able to sit at that time. Thankfully, now that issue has been resolved for students going through Maynooth University at the moment. But at that time, I suppose I had my eggs in a certain basket. I thought my career and my life was going in one direction. And about a month later, so that was in July, and around in August, there was a by-election in the constituency beside me, which is Meath East. And a friend of mine, Thomas Byrne, who'd actually given me notes for the New York Bar, was contesting that election. So I went out and canvassed for Thomas during that election. And I must say, Thomas now is a Minister for State for European Affairs. So Thomas wasn't elected on that occasion, but he was elected in subsequent elections. But at a rally for Thomas in Kells in County Meath, met a certain politician named Micheál Martin, who was in the opposition benches at that stage. And Micheál and I were speaking. I'd met him a few times in the past. And Maynooth, my own hometown, hadn't returned a councillor, a Fianna Fáil councillor for our party in decades. And there was an opportunity in about a year and a half at that stage for the local elections. And basically, we didn't have anyone. So he asked me would I be willing to be a local area representative, which was essentially acting nearly like a councillor without getting paid. And I said, yeah, why not? I always thought, look, I suppose in my innocence, I thought I'd go to America, make my fortune and come back at the age I am now, 36, and maybe contest elections. But I got ahead of it somehow and basically ran in those elections in 2014. and was fortunate to be elected. That was actually by far, I've contested, 4 elections now at this stage, and that was by far the hardest one, I have to say. And from there, I suppose my life in local government and indeed in politics kick-started. So that was at 24 years of age. And concurrently, so politics in Ireland, local authorities as a county councillor is essentially a part-time job, but historically and even currently, a lot of county councillors would be teachers or self-employed people to be able to balance the two. But I actually moved into the tech sector, and anybody that works in tech will know that they're long hours and it's a difficult job. So I was combining both I worked for 3 different companies in tech, from Meltwater to Zendesk to Gong. You're working 50, 60 hours weeks, and then you've got the council on top of that, which is you're basically on call at all stages, any issues locally, and it's at least another 20 hours. So a long shift in local government and in the tech sector before I was elected to the Dála in November 2025.
Fantastic. And I will circle back to your tech experience, to how you parlayed that into your AI policy and spokesperson role. But on that, what is your current portfolio and remit within your party and the government?
So I'm the Fianna Fáil spokesperson on artificial intelligence, Gaeilge and Gaeltacht Affairs. So we actually have, I suppose, the difficulty of being in government and as a government backbencher is that you have a responsibility and a spokespersonship for areas that are covered by ministries already. So we have a Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, Naoise Smith, who's doing an exceptional job. And then we have a Minister for the Gaeilge and Gaeltacht, Darach Leary, that also brings in social protection. So I suppose part of my remit is to really focus in on those areas and bring my expertise from artificial intelligence and indeed then from the Irish language speaking community and those living in the Gaeltacht. So I suppose I'm adding to those ministerial portfolios and assisting those ministers, particularly in identifying particular gaps and indeed opportunities. And I think AI is probably the best example of that, considering that I've come from the industry. I think I'm the only parliamentarian in Ireland that has come from the tech industry. So that gives me different nuances, experiences, also contacts and friends still in the industry that I can kind of pick up on trends and things that are changing that us as legislators really need to get ahead of. And part of that, I suppose, responsibility that I have, I also sit on the Artificial Intelligence Committee in the Oireachtas and also the Irish Language and Gaeltacht Committee, of which I'm vice chair of that committee. But the Artificial Intelligence Committee, for example, tomorrow Google are coming in to meet us, so we don't have the opening statements yet, but we'll be putting questions to Google's executives here in EMEA on kind of, I suppose, what they're doing to protect people. We look at, obviously, the huge advancements that Google are making in artificial intelligence, really, really impressive. But actually what we need to look at legislators is, yes, there are huge opportunities here, and these are things we really need to embrace, but also we need to ensure that citizens are protected, citizens' data is protected, and also that nobody's being taken advantage of. And then further down the line as well, we also need to look at, job displacement and how we retrain and protect people, particularly in a more modern economy where artificial intelligence plays a more pivotal and crucial role.
Fantastic. You've basically outlined a broad themes of questions I was going to ask you in this podcast, so thanks for teeing that up. Last year, you introduced the National Artificial Intelligence Bill 2026 to create the National AI Office. So what was the main driver behind that bill? And then perhaps you could provide an overview of what functions or what the National AI Office actually is and what it does.
Yeah, so I suppose coming into the role, I was appointed as a spokesperson in May, and I brought this piece of legislation forward in July. So it was quite a quick move on my behalf to try and get a bill forward. But it's something I saw that there was a gap, particularly in terms of AI regulation, but also monitoring AI trends. So there is an AI advisory panel, essentially, that the government have, which is independent, and some academics and people from industry in it, really, really interesting and very capable individuals. But what I was looking at here was a permanent footing. a body that would act as the regulator, particularly with sensitive state data, citizen data, but also being able to be the, I suppose, the port of call for people in Ireland, when it comes to AI. Who do I go to about AI? You go to the National AI Office. And that could be private industry, could be individuals, could also be state departments. And the idea, and I suppose what I was modeling it on, was on the Data Protection Commissioner, which has been a really successful office in Ireland when it comes to GDPR and is seen as the exemplar throughout Europe. And I thought there was a huge gap in the market for Ireland to really lead here. And the difficulty with establishing any type of office like this is obviously getting the staff, qualified, capable people that actually understand algorithms, understand LLMs, understand the industry, right? So I thought, Ireland with its tech industry here is probably best placed in Europe. So the idea behind it was, I suppose, to be that pinpoint, that central point in Ireland, to be a regulator, because we do need regulation of AI, but also to be an enabler. And that was a key aspect of it, that particularly with SMEs, for example, how can you basically use AI to improve your business? Now, so that was in July. I was going to introduce it into the Dáil, into Parliament in September. And the Department of Enterprise got one step ahead of me and announced that they would be establishing the office anyway, which is great. So it saved me a lot of work. So that has since progressed, and now there's an AI regulation bill before the House. So the scheme of that bill was published 2 weeks ago, and it's quite detailed. So it basically sets out what the legislation will do. It covers a variety of areas, a variety of topics when it comes to AI regulation. But one area it does cover is the establishment of the National AI Office. And technically, the office has already been started, and there is one employee already. But the AI Office will not be a regulator. It'll essentially be a signposting office, because there are 15 competent authorities that the government assigned as regulators in 2024, and it's upholding that decision rather than centralising the regulation into one body. Now, I'm being very truthful here. I was quite disappointed to hear that, to read that. I do think we need the strength of a commissioner to actually regulate AI properly. I think we need to have the expertise in one house rather than 15 houses. And that's not taking away from the expertise that is in the likes of the central bank or in the likes of the Data Protection Commissioner, as I mentioned previously. But it's up to me now to strengthen that piece of legislation before it comes into law. And look, I will have that opportunity. I've spoken with Minister Smith about this, and look, just reality, and understand where she is coming from, where the government is coming from. And a lot of it is around the infrastructural task force that Jack Chambers, the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, basically commissioned, where it basically found that there's too much red tape in Ireland. And what they don't want to do is add an extra layer of bureaucracy. So I understand, I suppose, the hesitancy behind setting up another regulator, but now it's just ensuring that this office actually has powers. So from my reading of the initial legislation, it doesn't have powers. So I think it needs to have at least powers of investigation, and then it can hand off to the relevant regulator rather than just a signposting office.
So to bring that to life, you mentioned the 15 competent authorities. So for example, in the funds industry, the Central Bank of Ireland tends to regulate those entities. So that would still be the case, but sitting above it in a coordinating aspect is the National AI Office. And also, would you say then what it's trying to do is pull all that information up from the different competent authorities, look at potential gaps, or you learn something from one that is missed across the others, and it's a single point of contact as required under the EU AI Act. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and there are still a lot of gaps in the legislation. Like, for example, if the central bank and the Workplace Relations Commission there's a particular case that has come forward. So in one instance, say both of them want to take it, or in another instance, neither of them want to take it. The actual AI office doesn't have the power to assign that case. And I think that's one example of things that need to be cleaned up in the legislation. So that's what I mean by powers. It needs to have more authority. It needs to have more teeth. the regulators are there, in fairness, are extremely strong and extremely competent. But there needs to be that leader, that lead agency when it comes to AI. And that's what the National AI Office is designated to be. But there needs to be additional powers to come with that to ensure that not only is it taken seriously, but it actually has the wherewithal to investigate particular issues, and regardless of where those issues may come from.
You mentioned the National AI Office is up and running. When does it officially launch into the wider industry? Is there a target go live date?
Yeah, so the EU AI Act stipulates that it has to be operational by August of this year. So it's the government's intention that it will be officially launched by August of this year. However, as I mentioned, kind of there is technically an employee and there is some work happening in the background, but it won't be, I suppose, available to the public or available to state departments until August 2026. But yeah, I'd be 99.9% certain it will be launched in August, because there is that legal stipulation that it has to as well.
Brilliant. Now, as we look at Ireland, it's got quite a few sectors that could benefit from AI. It's a technology hub, it's a finance hub, it has healthcare and pharma. So as you look across the island society economy, what areas of the economy do you think will benefit most from AI?
So when I worked for Gong, the CEO basically said that AI and the products that Gong has would eliminate a lot of the drudgery, so administrative drudgery. And that is continuing to stick with me, because the capabilities of AI at the moment, without looking too far into the future, I think if we look at what's available to people now between agentic AI, between different LLMs, I think what we can really and what we should really be leveraging are that ability to cut down administrative tasks. And that goes across society, right? So obviously, that's in your professional life, but it's also in people's private lives, and it should be within the state as well. So that's where I see the immediate impact. And I think there needs to be more digital literacy and AI literacy around that. And I think the government should be delivering more of that. Now, I know Minister James Lawless has announced that there will be an AI observatory, and there'll be funding for that. And that will have a role in that AI digital literacy. But I think that needs to be formalized, and needs to be formalized in a workplace scheme between the public sector and the private sector as well. So that's the immediate benefits. And I think, a lot of us as individuals who just kind of get tech and understand AI and understand how it works, we're all benefiting already, right? So, we're getting our, daily updates from our emails. We're getting in the morning, what's ahead of me. We're using, be it Copilot or Gemini, to help drafting responses to emails, etc. And, sometimes, it can be a case of AI is responding to AI emails, between Gemini to Gemini emails. And I think there's a lot of that in work at the moment. But in the medium term, where I really see it, and it's again staying within that administrative side of it, because I don't get too far ahead of it, because, we're forecasting what AI will do and what AI is going to do, but none of it is certain yet, right? But what we are certain of is that administrative side of it. So when I look at that from I suppose, a public benefit, what I'm looking at is actually, when it comes to waiting lists for surgeries in hospitals, when it comes to the court service and the backlog in cases being dealt with in courts. So that's how I see it being used in the short to medium term to really improve the efficiency of public services in the state. And I think there needs to be a bit more openness to it. And I do know, look, there is the natural hesitation because of sensitive data, like healthcare data, for example, is extremely sensitive. And, court data is extremely sensitive as well. So, there needs to be guardrails there. And that's why I think the likes of the AI Office and other bodies are crucial to give that certainty, particularly to the permanent states, departments, etc., that they have the ability to go and do these things. And as part of that, there's the regulatory sandbox as well. and the AI office will have the regulatory sandbox. This is what will allow, we'll say, government agencies to be able to test things safely, see it works before actually deploying nationwide. But that's why I see as I suppose the short term and the medium term. Longer term, look, we can all look into long term healthcare and improve benefits. But I think we really just need to focus now on what we know we can do and just start acting on it.
If you're enjoying the Fund AI pod, the best way to support the show is simple. Hit subscribe. It really helps a new channel like this grow, and it allows us to attract even more interesting guests from across the funds industry. Head to www.thefundaipod.com to catch past episodes, nominate future guests, or explore ways that we can work together, whether that's consulting, sponsorship, speaking, or collaboration. Now back to the episode. And you brought up an interesting point around people will be impacted by AI in terms of potentially job loss or falling behind if they're not using it. And you touched on AI literacy. There's a role there for government. There's a role there for the private sector to upskill their own staff. But if we were to touch on actions then around that, like what will be needed from society, from government to ensure that parts of society are not left behind with the AI revolution?
So for any of your viewers or listeners, this was not pre-scripted because I was literally drafting a policy this morning on retraining. So I basically am literally drafting a policy this morning around retraining for jobs that will be impacted by artificial intelligence. And as I mentioned, so a lot of these will be secretarial, call center type of jobs. And it's about reskilling and retraining them that they can be deployed into other areas of that business, right? Or of the economy. So if we say with the business, for example, so we'll take a large law firm and you have legal secretaries and there are new pieces of legal tech that means that those jobs really are, instead of 10, you only need 1 or 2. A lot of it can be automated. So what do we do with those 9 employees? Well, we need to be able to retrain them either within that company, and there should be a state fund there to assist them, because we look at, the cost benefit analysis. If 9 people were to go in job seekers benefit, as opposed to actually investing X amount, and this is what I'm working on at the moment, X amount into reskilling or retraining that person that they could be deployed into another part of the business, well then it's better for the state, it's better for that individual, and it's better for the business. They can use their skills elsewhere. Another thing is, so say if they can't be reskilled within that business, what I think we should be looking at is reskilling them in areas, because we're at full employment in Ireland, reskilling them in areas where we are under-resourced in Ireland. So that could be around green energy, green tech. It could also be even simple things like bus drivers. We've a huge lack of bus drivers in the country. It could be going into construction. There's a huge amount of jobs and industries there where people could be redeployed because we are at full employment. So I think, and the way I'm looking at it is, we need to be prepared for when it happens, because it's quietly happening already. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the most recent intakes into the top 5 accountancy firms or to law firms, they're actually not taking in as many, because a lot of the tasks they would have been doing previously are now being automated by tech. So, that's an example of it actually happening already to people who are literally trying to enter the workforce. So I think we have an opportunity here. So as scary as it is, people losing their jobs due to automation and due to AI, I think we need to look at it as an opportunity to reskill and retrain people into areas where we need more employees. We need more people contributing to particular sectors. And so that's literally policy paper I'm drafting today. Literally just got a start on it. But I think it's something that would make a positive impact, not only to the economy and to the state, but to the individual. And at the center of all this, we have to remember that it's individuals and it's people with families, with livelihoods, with mortgages to pay, and how best can we help them, rather than thinking just about the businesses. How best can we help the businesses? At the end of the day, we need to protect the individual citizen.
Fantastic. I think we're all looking forward to seeing the outcome of that paper or that bill. So we mentioned you're the spokesperson for AI and also Gaeltacht Affairs. So combining those two topics, how do you think AI will help with Irish language, culture, and learning about it more broadly?
Yeah, so the Irish language is very important to me. My name in itself is a dead giveaway, but it plays a huge part in my life. And the more visible a language is, the more people will learn it and the more people will embrace it. And, I would love a world where in Ireland, and Irish is the official first language of the country, everybody speaks Irish fluently. And how we get to that stage is obviously through the education system, but I think we can leverage tech for that as well. And it's actually embedding the language in people's lives at an earlier age and continuously and consistently. So I'd love for there to be an LLM developed in the Irish language. There hasn't one been developed yet. That would take a considerable piece of work. And I've spoken to a few of the large tech companies about this already, and it's something that they are considering and have considered. But as a politician, whenever I hear are considering is always something I look twice at or think twice about. But I do think, yeah, when it comes to smaller languages, so I was only in Wales last week, and Welsh is, their second language there. We also have, Manx, Cornish, Scottish. You have the Basque language, in Catalonia, their own language as well. So these smaller languages, I think tech can play a big role in ensuring that not only they're preserved, but actually they become a richer, fuller part of people's lives. And I do think we can improve the level of teaching of the language as well by utilizing AI in particular. And if we look at how education AI is developing, AI has been able to pinpoint the best way that individuals learn. And basically, that could be in relation to Irish, it could be in relation to maths or science. And we would see a progression and an improvement in teaching and obviously in learning in the years ahead. And Irish will be part of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the strengthening of the Irish language by utilizing tech.
Okay, so now pivoting to a different topic here. Ireland has the upcoming EU presidency and I believe is considering hosting an AI summit. Are you able to share a bit of information about this potential upcoming AI summit?
Yeah, so Ireland will host the EU presidency from July until December of this year. So it's a rotating presidency. And essentially what will happen will be the ministers will, relevant to their own department, host the foreign ministers for other European nations for different types of meetings and summits, etc., in Ireland over that 6 months. So it only comes around every 13 years. So it's a huge opportunity. I mightn't be in politics in 13 years, so mightn't see this opportunity again. Something we've been pushing on the AI committee has been to have an AI summit in Ireland as part of that. We obviously saw the success of the AI summit in France, and Minister Naoise Smith has pushed for this actually. She's pushed hard. It wasn't guaranteed to happen, but she has confirmed that it will be going ahead. So it's going to be happening in October. I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but it's going to be in the convention centre. So that'll be an international event, similar to the event in Paris. I don't think it'll be as big as the one that was held in Paris, but it will certainly bring together some of the top minds from across Europe between industry and obviously state AI as well. So there's some countries doing some really interesting work in relation to AI. France, as I mentioned, Estonia are really kind of pushing ahead, as are Spain. So there will be, I suppose, a huge amount of interest in this. I know there's a lot of work being put into ensuring that we have extremely impressive international speakers. I can't mention any names at the moment, but some of them would be very well renowned and would bring a crowd of 700 people on their own. So really, really looking forward to that. Nothing is confirmed yet. It's only initial dialogue. So it'll be a huge opportunity for Ireland to market itself on the international stage when it comes to AI and being seen as a leader in this space. And not just because, industry is based here, but because we have academics, we have politicians, and we have the expertise in this country to really drive not only Europe, but the world forward. And that being said, I'm not getting too far ahead of ourselves, in terms of being world leaders in AI, but we can certainly be those that can impact change and be swift and be nimble as a small nation. And, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the engagement beforehand with industry to ensure that they feel part and their voice is heard, and then civil society as well. So in the AI committee, we've had civil society in, from older people to younger people, people with disabilities, and how technology and AI is impacting them, how it could negatively and positively impact them. So it'll be wide ranging. It'll include all sectors of society. And I think, we need to look at, what is our vision for the future when it comes to AI in Ireland, and how do we deliver the most beneficial piece of technology to the country, to industry, more importantly, to citizens.
And how do you envision Ireland doing it different to France? And is there any objectives in terms of how you're going to measure success? And then lastly, three-parter, how do you ensure that the outcomes or the goals that are agreed at that summit are followed up and followed through?
So it's very obvious, Ian, that you come from private industry, because we're using, I was about to use some of the same words, goals, outcomes, and, kind of essentially, what are we going to get from this? Who's accountable? When is it going to happen? Will there be a Google sheet with tasks, and who's going to be assigned these tasks, etc. The main takeaway I took from the summit in France was that February last year was there was no follow through or basically follow ups, and it wasn't evident what was happening after. And I fed this back to the minister, and I've asked that, there are clear outcomes. What are we trying to get out of this summit? Are we hosting a summit just for the sake of it? Or is this to try and position Ireland to industry? Is it trying to, improve our relations with our European colleagues, and that they look at us as innovators or experts in this field? And the department haven't actually set out what outcomes they're looking to try and achieve yet. And I'm trying to nail them on that and to pinpoint it, because I do think we need to be clear on what outcomes we're trying to achieve. And then after that, there needs to be follow through. And there needs to be follow through even with people who attend, right? So, these were kind of the key objectives that, we outlined throughout the summit. And here's the progress plan with that. And, you will receive, a monthly progress update for the next 12 months, right? So now I don't know how achievable that is, but at least that there are maybe some combined goals or combined North Stars that the European Union will work towards, and then that works down to each member state. And Ireland says, okay, well, what we are going to position ourselves here in, and what we're going to specialise in, is the regulation piece. Because in fairness, in Ireland, we do regulation well. I know people in tech hate regulation. It's a pain, but it's necessary. It's a necessary evil. And we do it well in Ireland, between Commission, Demand, DPC, WRC. Like, they do it well, and that needs to be commended. And I do think that's where we can really add value when it comes to the AI space.
And you mentioned it's an opportunity to showcase Ireland's AI leadership, both domestically and on the EU stage. Where do you think Ireland sits today in terms of AI leadership? And is the target to be the primary EU AI hub, the leader? Is that a realistic goal? And if so, what would it take, or when would we be able to achieve that if we follow through on these actions that you outlined?
So I think we're a bit of a laggard, to be honest. I know we like to think of ourselves as ahead of the curve and, industrious, but I think parts of the country are. So obviously the industry itself are far ahead of, the country and most countries. And I think academia, actually, in fairness, academia in Ireland is pretty on the ball. There's some really strong academics, like Alan Speaton, for example, who really get it and are ahead of it and understand the trends, understand the algorithms, understand, kind of more than the basics. They understand it, the core of what's happening and what's about to happen. I think we have an opportunity, and sorry, Ireland has been slow. And that's why I brought the bill last July. I was like, we need to start taking this seriously. It's why I drafted another piece, another policy piece that'll probably become another bill it depends. I'm one individual, right? This is something the National AI Office should be doing. These are things that we, really should be ahead of. And I think we can get there, right? Don't get me wrong. But if I look at Estonia just fascinates me how they've digitalized nearly everything. You can get married and divorced online in Estonia. And Spain are moving in that direction as well. I just think digital literacy in Ireland is staggered. And that's both from the political and, I suppose, the state level, which is quite worrying. And I'm not sure if we will become, from a state perspective, the EU hub or the global hub for AI. I just can't see it happening because the expertise of the political and in the permanent civil service isn't there. It's there, as I said, in the industry. How we mesh those two together, I'm not sure, unless the National AI Office starts hiring people who worked in tech and in AI previously.
We need more people like yourself that have lived and breathed it and then go into public service.
Yeah, but it's hard to get elected, first of all. It's also hard to, people in tech are earning a lot more than politicians. So, you need to have more of that civic-minded perspective. And, politics isn't just about this one area of AI. You're dealing with schools, you're dealing with transport, you're dealing with trains, automobile, everything. So it's only one small aspect of the job. So look, not to sound dejected, I do think there are opportunities there, but I just think we need to take it more seriously, and there needs to be. I just think the government needs to basically make a decision, right? Okay, we want to be the leaders in Europe on AI. Okay, it's great to say that, but what are we going to do to do that? And I think, the AI office is bolsters up and it starts coming out with policy papers rather than me, and that they're supported and that they're funded and that they're delivered. I think then, it could happen. So I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I'm just saying at the moment we are laggards.
We've got some work to do. And maybe that's where the public-private partnerships come in to help move it along faster.
Yeah, and there's a bit of mistrust, particularly from the opposition side, when it comes to big tech. And the argument, and what I always get accused of, is the government are afraid of big tech because of basically the taxes that they pay in the country. So, there is that fine line where we need to be careful, where we're not beholden to big tech just because they're paying so much tax. But I do think we need to work together and certainly understand how things are developed, why things are developed, and the benefits to society. Like, there's so much opportunity here for society. Yes, there are risks, and we need to mitigate and regulate those risks. There's no doubt about it. But that shouldn't mean that we don't grasp the opportunity by both horns and really go for it.
Well, I'm conscious that you have a bill to write. So if you were to give our audience one takeaway from this episode, what would it be?
It would be, if you work in tech or you work in funds and you would like to change how Ireland does tech or how Ireland does AI or how Ireland does anything, and you feel that civic-minded duty, get in touch with me and get involved in politics, be it Fianna Fáil, party I'm in, or another party, doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to be at a national level, it could be at a local level. And I'm more than happy to be reached out to. If you have certain suggestions, please feel free to get in touch. And if you ever do want to take the plunge into political fray, yourself included, Iain, I'll be there to support you.
And following up on that, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you? What is the best way for them to follow your work? And where can they learn more about the National AI Office and the upcoming AI Summit?
So social media at Vote Naoise, Vote Naoise, and then Facebook at facebook.com/Naoise Ó Cearúil, and then email if people want to get in touch with me directly about particular pieces of policy at naoise.ocaroul@oireachtas.ie. And then you might just type it into the description, Iain, because my name is extremely difficult for a lot of people. And then to learn more about the National AI Office, visit the Department of Enterprise website /National AI Office. The details will be there, and there will be a website later on this year as well.
I'll definitely link that for everyone. Well, Naoise, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and good luck with the bill.
Super. Thanks, Iain.
If your fund or firm still runs critical processes on Excel, you're not alone. But the opportunity isn't just AI. It's unlocking the Microsoft tools you already pay for, like Power BI and Power Automate, to eliminate manual work and reduce key man risk. At 𝒂𝒐, we know funds, we know Microsoft, we know AI, and we move fast. Book a 1-hour sprint audit at 𝒂𝒐.io, and we'll identify 3 quick AI or automation wins to build immediate momentum for your firm.